is up? Daniel here with the Virtual Robotics Studio. We're back this time to put together our intake base. That's like the lower ramp, which is this bent sheet metal. We've got some angle brackets that are going to help funnel the ball into the middle. Need a little bit of pool noodle. And then, of course, our SKB 26004 combined. This is the floor of our, or the bottom of our hopper, which is going to be essentially part of the ramp, an extension to the ramp. Now, this video is going to be almost identical to the original KitBot one. So we're going to be following first build instructions for this section pretty much exactly, except our bottom panel of the hopper is longer, right? Because we combined it with that battery flap. So that's pretty much the only difference, but we'll go through and we'll get everything assembled together here in just a second. But before we do, we're going to give a special thanks to Argosy. First, Cross the Road Electronics, West Coast Products, Aramco, and Team 302, Lake Orion High School, for hosting our studio. All right, we're going to grab the bent sheet metal piece. This is kind of the bottom, the main structure of everything that's going on here. And there are two different sides to it. One side is just a bent flange here. The other side has these tabs sticking off. So we have one of those tabs on each side. So when this goes in the robot, that side is going to be where the ball ramps up and comes in. And then the other side is basically the start of the hopper, which is going to extend back. Well, the start of the fuel mechanism and then turns into the hopper as it extends back on the robot. So for this first step, we're going to be working on the side with the tabs. So make sure you're on that side. And on that side, we have 3 holes and 3 holes on diagonals, and then the 2 in the middle. Now, the 2 in the middle are eventually going to be to attach our dead zone noodle. That's going to help the ball not get stuck in between our different sets of rollers. But these 3 on the sides are going to be to attach 2 of our angle brackets. So these angle brackets are going to go on there. Now, it's really important when we're attaching these angle brackets that we attach them in the correct orientation, right? So they can either go on this way or this way. And each one goes on a little bit differently, so we have to make sure we get every single one correct. Now, since this is the initial ground intake area, we want the flat side facing out for both of these. So we're going to do flat side facing out for both of those because the ball is going to hit that and then get directed to the middle. And it's OK for the positioning to be symmetrical on this side. So we should have some of these 1/2 inch long. These are the 1032 button head, 1/2 inch long bolts. And we've got some of our nylock nuts. And with the nylock nuts, remember, again, we want to start on the metal side and then go into the plastic side second. All right, so let's go ahead and take one of these, line it up. For this, does it matter which direction we put the bolts? It does not matter. It is completely up to you. So the idea is, even if we put the bolt in from the top and it's sticking out the bottom like this, because the way the ramp is facing, that's going to be completely covered. There's no way that scrapes on the ground. So we're kind of good either way we want to put these bolts. So I'm just trying to think which way is going to be easier to attach it. I think I'm going to put the nut on the bottom, which I think is the way it was done in the instructions. But I think that is going to be easier to get to when everything is assembled if we ever had to take this off. So I'm going to get one on each end hole started. So we'll kind of get one on each end. And then start the nut on the other side for both of them. Cool. And then we can just tighten it down. Now, you can add a 3rd bolt in the middle. You don't need it strength-wise. It is sort of nice to have in that it can work as a emergency bolt. So if one of your bolts gets loose and you have 3, well, 2 of them are still tight. If you only put 2 bolts in and one of them gets loose, well, then the piece can maybe move on you. So if you want to put the 3rd bolt in the middle, that's fine. Not going to hurt anything. But as long as you have the 2 on the outside and they're both tight and they both stay tight, not going to run into any problems. We are almost there. There it is. All right, and pull tight. Cool. That side's good. And now the other side, we're going to do the same thing. Right? Again, make sure that the flat edges are facing towards each other, facing out towards the outside of the robot. Don't get it flipped around like this. And same thing, 2 more bolts, 2 more nylock nuts. So we'll kind of drop that in. See if we can get away with doing both at the same time. Looks like I can just hold on to it this way. All right. And then same thing. This time, let's see if the handled one clears the top here for me. Yeah. This is probably easier. Okay, and then give it extra little pull there. Make sure it's tight. And good. All right, so that was the first step. So now, just to visualize, right, one of our balls of fuel pieces is going to, if it's in the middle, it can just get pulled right up the ramp. If it's on the side, this is going to sort of like force it to slide over to the middle to go up the center of the ramp. So those look good. Now on the other side, we can't attach our other 2 pieces yet. They are going to go here. We're going to have these 2 pieces. They are going to attach on here I think this way. We got to get the orientation right. I think like this one is opposite this one. But in between these and that bottom plate is going to be our hopper bottom panel. And in our case, that is our SKB 26004 combined, which is those 2 put together. Now, at this point, we might as well remove the cover. I kind of left it there because my label was on there, but we don't really want this on when we put it on the robot. So let's go ahead and get that off of there. And what we're looking for on this piece of plastic here is the side without holes. So this side, we have a row of holes, got holes on these sides. This edge here has no holes. That was the side where we were talking about, okay, that is where, we're going to match drill our holes as we go. So let's get ourselves some clamps to be able to attach these together. And essentially, this is going to go on top of our piece of metal here. And we want it to roughly be lined up. Like you can feel the sides to do your best to line the sides up. If it feels like it's just a little bit past on either side or both sides, that's OK. If it feels like it's way off on one side, you might want to go back and look to cut that down. But if it's like close, that's all right. And we kind of want to be just over the top of the bump. And I'm going to just go ahead and get this, I'm going to start some clamps on this to help hold it together. This is probably not the best direction for this clamp because I got a drill next to it, but it's going to be easier for me to put it on. And I think we're going to have a little bit more adjustment happening here before we are fine with it. So I'm just basically trying to aim so that this edge is right on the ridge. That's going to put us in pretty good shape. All right, so that is sort of held in place. We can now check our positioning a little bit more accurately. So first of all, if your piece, right, this should be the 17 1/8 inch direction. But if I use the model from the bottom of this plastic, right, so if I take my tape measure, and if you're not aware of it, the tape measure, it's got this little thing on the end. And that is meant to slide open and closed. So when you're measuring on the outside of something, you want to pull that tight. When you're measuring to the inside of something, you want to push it so it's flat and tight. But if I put this tape measure against the edge of the ramp and go out to the end of my piece, I want this dimension to be 13.2 inches or so, which is about 13 and so 1/8. 125 is 1/8 of an inch. If you add a 1/16 of that, you'd be at 1875. So a little bit past 13 3/16 is ideally where we want to be. And right now, I am at 13 and just under a 3/16. So on this edge, I am almost exactly 13 3/16, and then on this edge, I am pretty much exactly 13 3/16. Okay, so the middle is a little short. The edges are good. It just means I didn't cut my piece perfectly straight. My piece is off by about a 1/16 of an inch, or I mounted it also a little bit. Now, if the two ends are good and the middle is not, then that's, that's what it is. So basically, I'm good. I'm happy with that. If you want to push a little bit, well, no, I mean, you should aim for that dimension. That's going to line up with the other pieces. So I don't think I want to move this. But obviously, if you didn't get that dimension, you can loosen it up. You can adjust these pieces a little bit and try to slide it to where you want it to go. But again, like it was designed sort of so that the edge of this goes just right on that bend. It goes right above that bend. So we'll go ahead and make sure these clamps are tight. And do I need another one? I guess, nah. I don't know where I would put another clamp to really help me out much here. We're going to flip this over. Right, so we are looking at the holes. Obviously, this one has been used a little bit. That's all right, don't worry about it. But we need to trace all 8 of these holes through. So let's see. I can, well, because of my clamps, maybe if I go to the corner here, that seems like, yeah, that seems good. So if we go to the corner, I can kind of stretch it out for those 2, and then maybe we'll go get these 2, and then come into the side and get those 3. So I'll line up for these 3 holes here. Get them kind of close to the edge. Grab a couple clamps to hold the piece in place. This clamp, not going to reach the metal, so we'll get just the plastic. It is, clamped together there too. All right, and then you'll need a drill. These are not 1/4-inch holes. So the 2 big ones in the middle are 1/4-inch holes. These 3 ones on the side, I believe, are smaller. And we can check our drawing because it is marked on there. These are 0.201 is what it's saying. So that should be a number 7 drill bit. I think this is a 7. You can always check because it should fit, in this hole. It should just fit in that hole. Looks like it's just a little bit tight, but yeah, I would believe that those are 201 or for number 7 drill bits. If you don't have a number 7 drill bit, again, just like all the other places, you can go ahead and use a 3/16 drill bit, number 8 drill bit. Anything in that neighborhood is going to be okay. All right, let's go ahead and get our holes drilled here. All right, so that's the first one. Now we have to be careful. If you feel anything shift while we're doing this, I mean, we got sort of like 3 clamps at least holding the metal to it, and then the extra one stopping that from shifting. But if things move, you got to be aware of that because we can't, we aren't filling the holes as we go. We're not like adding the bolts as we go. We're going to drill all the holes. So if you feel anything shift, you got to stop and make sure your previous holes are still lined up. All right, that's 2 and 3. Great. Let's unclamp it off the table. I'm going to do these 3 on the side because they're the same size drill bit. So get ourselves kind of close in here as we can. I'm hitting the table. All right. So yes, this we can clamp down on that part. This one I think we can sneak past the other clamp as well. All right, and let's do these 3, the diagonal 3 on the other side. Perfect. All right, and now for the 2 in the middle, let's readjust. So those, we want to see daylight here off the edge. Looks like this one, the best I can do is to clamp just on the polycarb in a couple places. All right, and I can kind of eyeball on the bottom. How much room do I have to the table? This one's a little close. I could see daylight through, but it was just barely. That looks like we'll be okay. And now these two holes are different size. So these holes are going to be a 1/4 inch. So we're going to need to get our 1/4 inch drill bit and upsize to that. And you'll see that fits in there. All right, so let's put that one in the drill. And same thing, we're just going to trace these two through. Okie doke. Gonna unclamp it here, unclamp it here. In theory, like the die is kind of cast here. You could probably take these side clamps off because the holes are where the holes are, and it's going to line up when we bolt stuff together. But it doesn't hurt to keep the clamps there just to keep everything lined up when you move on to the next step to assemble stuff. So now we've got our next two angle brackets that we have to attach. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So on one side, like I guess, so the ramp is the inside of the robot. So let me turn this around to put you inside the robot. You're now inside the robot. On the robot's right-hand side, we're going to take this and we're going to have it so that the two angle sections, the small legs, are facing towards each other. And on the robot left side, we're going to take the piece that's here and rotate that around to put it in position. It'll actually rotate around to go into that position too. So that is the setup. These are going to be flipped, and I think the reason why they're flipped is it gives a slightly different funnel shape. So when two balls maybe try to come in at the same time, this way they're funneling to the exact same point. This way they're funneling to slightly different points, and that might help out with some jam clearing and stuff like that. All right, now if we take one of these 1/2-inch bolts and we drop that through, the question is, do we have enough on the other side to attach to? That is maybe good enough. It's very close. It might be enough. It might not be enough. If you want to take a chance, you can go ahead and use the shorter bolts. That will actually save you some effort. I think the other length bolts and the bolts that are recommended for this are way long. So we got 1-inch long bolts. I think that's the ones that you are directed to use for this step. We're going to have a lot of tightening to do, but it will for sure fully engage. So that's what I'm going to do just to stay consistent here. Of course, if you had like, I don't know, 3/4 inch long bolts, that'd be even better. Or what the ones that we just don't make, the length was a 1/2 long. So if you had even 5/8, you're probably fine. All right, let's get these both started. Okay, and I think this is definitely a job for the handled Allen wrench, so I can kind of use it like a screwdriver because we got so far to go. And just before we started this section, we were talking about power tools. And this is a situation where if you have a socket driver for your drill, you could do that. You're going to want to make sure that you set the clutch setting on your drill, or you're careful not to over tighten it because you can do damage here if you go hard with the power tools and you over tighten stuff. So we'll just do this the old-fashioned way here. This one is like right on the border of me running out of patience for how long it is before I would be forced to go with the power tool. All right, this one is tight. Double check this one. That's tight. All right. So this one is in. Definitely we can take this clamp off now. That clamp is doing nothing. Actually, both clamps are probably doing nothing at this point. So I'm going to get them out of the way. All right, now the second one, right, is going to, if you start the same direction this one is, if you rotate it around, that's the position it should be. Or again, we should have one leg facing in, the one we just did, and this one should be the flat edge. Or if you prefer, the small leg of this one and the small leg of this one should be facing towards each other. And let's go ahead and drop a couple bolts through and get them started. By the way, if you drilled your holes with like a 3/16 drill bit, you didn't have a number 7 or something, and the bolts are kind of sticking on the way in, it is okay to run the drill back through that to open the hole up. You shouldn't have to also screw the bolt all the way through to get it into position. All right. Looks good, and now away we go. And in, second one. This is tough too, because you got to keep the wrench on the nut. So I kind of use my thumb there to keep it from sliding out. So close. All right. And we are there. All right. Whew. Okay. That is now this piece mechanically put together. We have one more piece we have to add. And that is going to be our pool noodle here, or a dead zone noodle that's going to stop balls from getting jammed in the middle. All right, so let me get rid of some of this stuff. Let's bring out the things we need to cut our noodle and get it attached. All right, next step, we have to make our dead zone noodle. So there is a drawing for this part. We can use that to help us out. Essentially, we're going to need to take a piece of this that is 5 inches long, and then we're going to have to cut one side off so that we have a section that's like 0.8 inches long. So let's see what we can do. I guess the first one's easy, 5 inches long. So we can, and again, this 5 inches, it's like, 5 inches is anywhere around there is going to be okay. So we'll kind of stretch this out to 5 and say we want to lose the line there. Whoops. And I might, because I'm going to cut this kind of by, well, it'll be fine. It's hard sometimes to cut straight, but we're just going to cut this by hand. So we got our 5-inch section. And you can use kind of all kinds of stuff. Like, honestly, if you have a bandsaw, I would probably take this over to the bandsaw and just run it through. That's going to give you a nice, clean, very, very good cut. If you don't have that, any handsaw will work. I think hacksaws work pretty well because the small teeth gives you kind of a clean finish on it. The long utility knives, they're the ones that you can stretch out and you have a long blade. Those cut through very nicely. And then I think they're actually foam cutting stuff. They're like wires that heat up and things like that. If you got any of that stuff, by all means. All right, but we're gonna cut right on the edge of that line and do our best to keep it straight. And I'm just gonna stop before I cut into the table here. And just kind of, hold on to it and cut the rest of the way through. It's just foam. All right, is this about 5 inches? It is definitely a little crooked. Some of the crookedness was, it's 5 inches on the side I started on. You see, the side I cut is pretty straight until the very end. The other side is a little bit off, so I could potentially try to just get that little bit that's sticking out. This was probably not worth it. That is not making things better. We'll finish that cut. All right. That was a failed experiment. All right, but it's about 5 inches long. We'll be okay. And also, we're going to cut a section off, so the fact that it's a little bit weird, we'll just use the good side here where it's nice and straight. All right, the next problem that we have is we need to cut now down this way, and we need to try to maintain a specific dimension. This is really hard just for me to eyeball and cut. Even if I go over to the bandsaw and I try to run it through, it's going to be hard for me to not let it rotate or have other things happen. So I think to have a really good shot at doing this, I want a line along both sides at the right spot. And then when I cut down, I can make sure I'm on the line on this side, make sure I'm on the line on that side, and that's going to give me a pretty accurate cut for that dimension. So if you're interested in a bunch of trial and error and some potential other ideas for how you might do this, you can check out this section in our non-Swerve KitBot video where we spent a little bit more time trying to figure stuff out. But since we figured it out, we're going to just use that method. So if I can have the pool noodle down on the ground, and we're going to, the good side, the side you want to use should be facing towards the table. And I'm going to kind of tape it in place so it doesn't move on me while we're doing the marking. So I'll get kind of one piece of tape there. And if it moves a little bit, I mean, again, it's, you know, like we just do the best we can. And I'll do one on this side. So that's like, it can still move around a little bit, but if I'm gentle, that's going to kind of stay in place. And then the next thing was we need to figure out a way to mark at exactly that dimension. So if you have like a pen or a pencil that can sit on something that's right at 0.8 off the ground, you can drag that across, and that'll give you a straight line on one side, drag it across, that'll give you a straight line on the other side. What we found was that using this square, I think without the cap on it, is pretty close. So like if I, for example, bring out my tape here, if I do a little mark on the tape, I can then measure that, and we can see what that goes to. So right now, to the edge of that line is 0.76. The top of the line is 0.78. So we're really, really close to 0.8. We got to get just a little bit more thickness on our square to be able to do that. So I'm going to use the tape to build up that edge that we're sitting on. So if I grab a piece of tape that's sort of like that length, we can set this on there. Okay, and now we're taller by one thickness of tape. And we can do another quick check with that. If I hold this up against the edge, we can do another check. Let's see where we're at. So now, to the top of the Sharpie mark, it is 0.80 something, 806. So that's like perfect. So if I do this and I leave the Sharpie line, we're going to be exactly where we want to be, right about 0.8. So I will just basically, I could rely on myself to hold the pen there, but might as well use the last little bit of tape to help hold it in place too. And I'm not going to trust that tape. I'm also going to be holding it by hand. All right, so now what we can do is if we go up to the pool noodle and we just run it along the edge gently, trying not to, you know, tip it too much. I know it's going to wobble a little bit. It's only taped in place. That's fine. Then we can go to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. Oops, I think I went too far away. All right, and I have a line, clean line on both sides, so I can undo my apparatus here. Well, I'll leave that tape on for the moment. All right, so now we can untape this. And that is basically it. So if we can start right past the line, right, we want to leave the line. So right there is where we would be cutting. And the question is that the dimension we want to see? And the answer is, it's hard to tell because foam compresses. But I'm getting 0.808 maybe to the very edge here. So I'm happy with that. Now all I got to do is slowly cut down and try to stay on the lines, or actually just past the lines. So I'm kind of like trying to watch both sides. Trying to also, I think I want to turn this way because now I have the bigger side to hold on to, so my hand isn't right next to where we want it to be. All right, and then I think I'm going to kind of drag one side down a little bit and then look back to the other side and get that side going. And I'm drifting a little bit off this line. Nah, pretty good, pretty good. All right, and then on this side, where are we at? This one is harder for me to see by a little bit. Oh, okay. Trying to get this one down towards the bottom here. Rotate it back over, get this one down towards the bottom. And hopefully we can just stay in that groove until, well, my hacksaw just hit. So I'm going to switch to, you could take the hacksaw blade off. I have one that's already off. And it's just foam, so I'll be able to cut it no problem this way. Might even have more control. Okay, and we're right at the very bottom, so I'll flip it up and cut up into the air. And we have a piece that could be a cleaner cut, but I think it's pretty good. This is sort of going to be hard to measure, again, because it's foam. But on the calipers, from this edge to this edge is the dimension that shows on the screen. So that is a step measurement. So if I come down to it, that should be, well, let's try this side. That side looked a little short. Let's try this side. I definitely squeezed in a little bit. So that is 0.83, 803. So that side's pretty good. This side, let me try again. Make sure I don't squeeze it at all. Just get right down to the edge and stop. I think that's touching. All right, that side is 0.7765. So I did not cut perfectly straight. The side we started on is pretty good. The other side's just a hair short. Now, there is some adjustment that's going to happen with this. If you put this in and it's working, good job. If you put this in and it's not working, you might have to make this a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner for it to work. You could put some stuff underneath it as well, right? So if it's just a little bit short, you might have some, maybe like some Velcro, maybe some tape. Maybe you have just another piece of foam that you can put under there. So you might want to adjust it that way. But you also have more pool noodle, right, that you can cut another piece if you need to. Now, that recommended dimension of 0.8 worked fine for me on KitBot. When we did the non-swerve KitBot. But there is some notes there that, depending on how all your stuff goes together, where this actually gets, zip tied down, it could need to be a little bit bigger or a little smaller. So that's a dimension that you might have to experiment and play with anyway. So if you're close to the number of 0.8, you're probably fine for this step. All right, now let's go ahead and bring back our intake here, our intake base plate and the bottom of our hopper. And you're also going to need some zip ties. That is what holds this on. All right, so this is going to go lined up in between our set of holes there. So we can sort of see that like the noodle can be on the middle, and we try to drag both ends down. It could be shifted one way, and we pull the other end down, or it could be shifted this way, and we pull this end down. The note in the instructions say we want this to essentially be lined up with our metal holes, the side without the plastic hopper on top of it. So that's what we're looking to line up to. And then we'll pull that end down to touch the plastic. And that is the recommended mounting for it. Now, when we do the zip tie, if I come through here with the zip tie, when I zip tie it on, that bump would be on top. We do not want that. We want just the pool noodle and as little extra stuff as possible. So I am going to actually go ahead and feed these zip ties through. So I'll feed it through here and then back through the other hole. And I can actually get it started. I think there should be more than enough room. My zip ties are long enough that I should be able to slide the foam noodle in after the fact. So I'll do that for both of these. All right, and then we can slide that pool noodle in, right? And again, I'm going to basically bring it down so it's touching the zip ties there. Okay, and then, of course, I got to flip it up, kind of keeping it in that position. We're now going to tighten these zip ties down. And I'll get this one going. And once you start a little bit, you do have the ability to still, like I can still shift that around quite a bit. So I'm going to bring that forward again so it's touching mostly on the metal side here. And now I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to make it pretty tight. We want these to be, squeezed in pretty tightly so it doesn't move. You'll get some indentations where it's squeezed in. Obviously, I did not center it. I'm a little bit shifted this way. That's OK, because if you think about it, when a ball starts coming in, like it's never going to touch this edge, right? It is impossible for a ball to touch that edge. That is as far over as the center of the ball can go. So really, it's this middle section in between the zip ties that's doing pretty much all of the work, right? Like no matter which side it comes in from, like that's as far over as it can go each direction. All right, so once those are in and relatively tight, or about as tight as you can do, we can grab some flush cutters here. And I'm going to trim the ends. So get right next to the zip tie if you have flush cutters, just so you don't have those sharp edges sticking out. And that looks good. All right. So save your extra pool noodles, especially the one that's about 5 inches long. You can see this is why that 5 inches doesn't matter too much. I could be longer by almost half an inch. Could be a little bit shorter as well. And it would still be fine. So we have the rest of our piece that even if it wasn't cut perfectly, that's 5 inches of pool noodle that if we have to take another chop at something, if we need maybe 0.9 instead of 0.8 or 0.7 instead of 0.8, we can take another pass at this and do it. The key with that is just find something that you can rest your Sharpie on or your marker on that's going to put the line at, close to that number that you need. And then you can decide, okay, do I cut in the middle of the line, the top of the line, or the bottom of the line? All right, but this is a completed assembly. This is our kind of our intake ramp, our bottom, our floor, intake floor, and the bottom of our hopper, ready to go. So we can start assembling things in the robot. We'll do that in the next video. But before we go, we're going to give a special thanks to Argosy. First, Cross the Road Electronics, West Coast Products, Aramco, and Team 302, Lake Orion High School, for hosting our studio.